I do a lot of landscape photography and many scenes have a large dynamic range. That is why HDR is a technique I use all the time. In the past, I made many videos about creating HDR images with Darktable, but since Darktable 5.6, things have changed a little bit. In this video, we will look at all of the methods for creating HDR images with Darktable, and then I will show you how to set up the method I think works best. By the end of the video, you should know which method to use depending on your HDR workflow. So if that sounds good for you, let's go. As a reminder, there are a few ways for creating HDR images with Darktable. The first method is the Create HDR button. You can find it in the Light table. On the right side panel, open Action on Selection. Select your images and then click on Create HDR. The problem is that this method does not align the pictures. If your pictures are not perfectly aligned, the result will not work properly. Even if you use a tripod, alignment can still be wrong because of wind and vibration, and that's why we should avoid this method for now. This may change in future Darktable releases as I explained in this video, but until then, I don't think we should use this method. The second method for creating HDR with Darktable is to use Enfuse. Enfuse is an external application, so it's not built inside Darktable. To use it, you need the Enfuse Advanced or Enfuse Simple plugin. The main problem is that Enfuse does not work directly with RAW files. You need to process your RAW file before merging them. The final result is a demosaic TIFF file. This means you lose some flexibility during editing. The TIFF file is also very large. Our drives are not getting cheaper, so this can also be an issue. This brings me to the third method, which is HDRMerge. This method will align your images and will create a raw DNG file instead of a demosaic TIFF file. HDRMerge is also an external application, so we will need a plugin to use it with Darktable. But since Darktable 5.6, plugins are very easy to install. But there is one problem with HDRMerge. On Windows and macOS, it may not work with newer RAW formats such as Canon CR3. But now I have a solution for this, and I think HDRMerge can work for almost everybody. The first thing we have to do is install HDRMerge. On Linux, you can install it with your package manager or your software center. You should be able to find it in all of the main Linux distributions. In the past, I've used it with Debian, Linux Mint, and Arch Linux without any problems. On Windows and macOS, go to the HDRMerge website. The link will be in the video description. Under Download, you will find the link for Windows and macOS. These links will take you to the HDRMerge GitHub. On Windows, download and install the exe file. On macOS, download and install the DMG file. Now that HDRMerge is installed, open Darktable. In Darktable 5.6, the Lua script manager is bundled with the release. We no longer need to install Git to access it. The script menu is at the bottom left corner. Open it, and under Action, make sure Start and Stop Script is selected. Under Tools, you will see many sections, including Example and Official. Select Contributed and go to the third page. You should now see a script named HDRMerge. Click the Power button to enable it. The HDRMerge menu should now appear in the right side panel. Open the HDRMerge panel and select the path to the HDRMerge binary. To do so, click on the small folder icon and locate the binary on your computer. On Linux, go to /user/bin and look for HDRMerge. On macOS and Windows, the path will be shown on the screen. Once you find the binary, you click on Update. Now, you select the images you want to merge and you click on Merge. And voila! You can now edit your image in Darktable and post it on Instagram so your mom can like it. HDRMerge should work with all RAW files supported by libra. On Linux, libra is installed as a dependency, so it will be updated with your system. On Windows and macOS, Libra is bundled with HDRMerge. That bundled version is also some format including Canon CR3 will not work at all. Before, my recommendation was to use the Enfuse plugin for these files. But now I have a better option. A few weeks ago, I made a video about a plugin that converts RAW files to DNGs. You can use that plugin to convert your CR3 files into DNG files. Then merge the DNG files with HDRMerge. I tested this on a Windows virtual machine and it was working perfectly. If you use a Fuji camera, there are a few things you need to know. HDRMerge version 0.5 will not work with Fuji X-Trans sensors. You need version 0.6. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the installer for Windows or macOS. I only found version 0.6 in the AUR. So for now, the practical options are to use Arch Linux or compile HDRMerge from source. Overall, I think HDRMerge is a great application. I've used it for the last few years and it has been working great. In future Darktable releases, we may be able to do HDR with alignment straight inside Darktable. But until then, I hope you will be able to do great HDR pictures using HDRMerge. So that's it for me. See you next time.